Could I ask you a question? Do you have the "but if not" faith? Now, maybe that's an expression that you've never heard of before, but it comes out of the book of Daniel, chapter 3, when three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, had been commanded to bow down to the golden image of King Nebuchadnezzar. When the music played, they must bow down, or whoever does not bow down will be thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Well, when the music began to play, everybody fell down, everybody, except three men were standing. And they were reported to the king, who summoned them, said, "What is this, that you didn't bow down and worship my golden image? We'll give you a second chance. When you hear the music, you bow down. But if you don't, you will be thrown into the burning fiery furnace." Well, these three men said, "Look, we're not careful to answer you," because the king had said, "Who's this God of yours that's going to deliver you from the burning fiery furnace?" And the reply was, "We're not even careful to answer you, O king. Our God is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, but if not." That's the way the Authorized Version put it, the ESV. Our God is able to deliver us, but if not, we will not bow down. Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. And that's what I mean by the "but if not" faith. It's continuing a story of three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In the first chapter of Daniel, they'd been wonderfully vindicated in their stand not to defile themselves with the royal food. Just remember this: if God vindicates you, it's with a purpose, not merely to give you an inward satisfaction and joy. It's because God's not finished with you yet. And so vindication carries with it a great responsibility. Well, these three Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, could not have known that they were facing an even far greater challenge. They've not known anything like this before. They were being trained for spiritual leadership. You see, God gives trials to develop our character. And there are two kinds of spiritual leadership. There's what I would call active leadership. That's aggressive leadership. People that are like this, they have high profile, they get the attention. But then there's passive leadership, often underestimated. And that's what these three were trained for, what I would call passive leadership. Have you ever thought that maybe you were being trained for passive leadership? I can tell you, you are being called to leadership. You may not have realized that. You say, "Well, RT, I am not a leader, I'm a follower." But consider these three men. This is the kind of leadership that is needed among Christians today. Passive leadership is developed by how we react to testing and temptation. Jesus said, "He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much." Let me give you an example of passive leadership. In the 36th chapter of Isaiah, you have the account when Sennacherib threatened Jerusalem, and he insulted everybody. And they were sitting on the wall, and they were being warned that you better bow down to Sennacherib. We're told in Isaiah chapter 36, verse 21, "The people remained silent and said nothing in reply, because the king had commanded, 'Do not answer him.'" In other words, passive leadership. You take your stand. You say, "Enough is enough." You know, there's a difference between testing and temptation. Testing is when God wants to bring the best out of you. Temptation is when Satan wants to bring the worst out of you. And these men would undergo a different kind of testing, which would determine whether they were qualified for spiritual leadership. I'll tell you something. Passive spiritual leaders are made, not born. This leadership is a grace. It's not a gift. It's something within you that comes, something that comes in time. And it's not something you do as a job. It is what you are as a person. And this is why, I'm sorry, so many leaders today are followers. They have high profile, but they're basic followers. Most leaders today, they wet their finger, hold it up to the wind, and see which direction the wind is going, and they try to assess where are the people, what do they want, and then the leader jumps out in front of them and pretends to be leading them. No, he's really a follower. We're talking about a rare leadership when you keep your eyes on God and you keep your eyes on Jesus and you say, I will do what you say, I won't be looking over my shoulder. Well, God will never promote you to the level of your incompetence. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, were tested with the greatest trial ever. It was one thing when they had the test of resisting the food of the king's table. That was a small thing. But like it or not, the Christian life is a series of testing and trials. And listen, you don't become a Christian to avoid trials or testing. Becoming a Christian is what enables you to face testing and trials. And the Christian life is to be one in which we are changed from glory to glory. But how do we reach a higher level of glory? And the answer is by dignifying the trial God has designed for you. James said, count it all joy, count it pure joy when you fall into various trials. And when a major trial comes upon you, it's God's invitation to come up higher. You know, God doesn't lead us from A to Z, but from A to B and B to C. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were about to have an extreme kind of testing. What if you were to discover you're on the brink of an extreme trial? Well, in their case, God wanted to change these three men into his winning minority because they were pressurized to conform. You see, Nebuchadnezzar wanted one religion, and he says, everybody bows down. You see, the world, false religion, the world wants you to conform to it. You do it because everybody's doing it. Well, there's an interesting translation of Romans chapter 12, verse 2, J.B. Phillips' translation. Don't let the world squeeze you into its mold. Well, you know something? God is in the process of making all of us like Jesus. There's a story that comes back from the States where the city had commissioned this sculptor to make a horse out of a big block of marble. And they had the big block of marble there, and the sculptor and the photographers came and took his picture next to this big block of marble. And they asked him a question. However, are you going to turn that big block of marble into a horse? He said, it's very easy. I just chip away everything that doesn't look like a horse. Well, we are in the process of being more and more like Jesus. And what God does is to chip away everything in us that is unlike Jesus. Well, obedience of the world comes through peer pressure. They want you to be afraid like they are. And by the way, the reason that the Jews missed their Messiah 2,000 years ago is because of peer pressure. In John chapter 5, verse 44, Jesus asked the Pharisees a question. How can you believe who receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that comes from God only. You see, they were worried about what everybody else would think. They dare not trust Jesus. Had they been seeking the honor that comes from God alone, they would not have missed Jesus. But it was not on their radar screen. They only wanted the praise of one another. Well, this is how the Jews missed their Messiah. What the world wants is for you to conform, and they want uncritical conformity. Liberal scholars today, seminaries, theological colleges, they want you to accept their views uncritically, even though they criticize the Bible. They want instant conformity. That's what is going on here. The king says, as soon as you hear this music, here's a statistic. 5% of the people today think. 5% think they think. 90% don't think even if you killed them. Here's another statistic. 5% of the people make things happen. 5% watch things happen. 90% don't even know what's going on. Well, God wants to make His people different. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they marched to the beat of a different drum. But then in this story, another element comes in. It's called jealousy. There's a verse in Proverbs, who can stand before jealousy? Well, you see, these men had been vindicated and exalted because they wouldn't defile themselves with the king's meat. But now they are brought to a different level. And when you are exalted to a higher level, you're going to find people jealous of you. Paul says, weep with those that weep, rejoice with those that rejoice. It's easy to find somebody who will weep with you. It's hard to find somebody who will rejoice with you. You may think you've got a friend, but if you get promoted very high, they start to be jealous of you. Jealousy. We have to face it every day. It's been put like this. Some people are jealous of your face. Some people are jealous of your race. Some people are jealous of your lace. Some people are jealous of your place. But those who would not bow down, they had a special grace. And everybody was jealous of their grace. And Nebuchadnezzar would never have known about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but they were reported by jealous people. So when you take your stand, count on someone to report you to those who can hurt you. It can happen at your place at work. I'm sorry, it can happen in the church. Well, here's the thing. Expect that kind of thing to happen. God will bring things out in the end. And if everything is going to be turned out just the way God wants it, all those people that are jealous of you, it's not going to make any difference. How you handle another person's jealousy of you can determine whether you will be a leader. Here's one of my favorite verses in this connection. It's 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 20. How is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and endure it, that is commendable before God. And we're told in the same way, Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in His steps. Well, these three Hebrew children are being challenged. Don't expect the world to admire your courage, and yet the world is motivated by a perverse curiosity. They sometimes are fascinated by what we believe. They hope that it isn't true, but are afraid that it might be. And what is needed is a generation of Christians not motivated by a spirit of fear, which so many of us have. What we need is the but if not faith. And so when the king says, who is this God who's going to deliver you? They say, we don't even have to worry about it. We don't have to think about it. And what is needed today, in my opinion, more than anything in the world among Christians, is the but if not faith. It's one thing to say, Lord, I will serve you if you bless me. It's another to say, our God is able to deliver us, but if not. I think one of the worst things that has happened in Christian television in recent years, so many preachers get on television and promise their viewers the earth and sky if they will do this for them. And the idea is that if God blesses you, then you can really serve Him. Are you one of those that if God prospers you, you're going to bless Him? If God heals you, you will serve Him. God is looking for those who will say, if I'm not blessed, if I don't prosper, if I'm not healed, I will serve the Lord anyway. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were characterized by these three things. First was personal conviction. It's very interesting. They had a conviction concerning the nature of God. See, the question was put to them, who is this God? And their reply is, our God is able. And so they believed in God's power, but they also believed in God's freedom, that God doesn't have to. Do you know one of the worst things that has come on our generation? It's the feeling of entitlement. Everybody feels entitled. And we say, if I do this for God, He's got to do this for me. Wrong. We obey God. We do what He says, no matter what. And I can tell you, they express their belief in the freedom of God. He's able to deliver us, but if not, if He doesn't, we still will not bow down. Is that you by chance? Are you willing to serve God if He doesn't bless you, if He doesn't answer your prayer, if He doesn't heal you, if He doesn't prosper you, if He doesn't give you that job? And what if it gets worse and worse? Well, you see, these three Hebrews knew there was nothing impossible with God, but they equally knew they had no claim upon God. My early mentor, Dr. N.B. Magruder, who ordained me to the ministry many years ago, once said to me, I quote, "My willingness to forsake any claim upon God is the only evidence that I've seen the divine glory." And we need a generation of people who are not serving God just because of what they get out of Him, but will serve Him anyway. It's what Joshua learned when he came into Canaan. He saw the messenger with the sword and wanted to know, are you for us or against us? And the reply was, neither. And I can tell you something, and I don't mean to be unfair, but you have not come to know the God of the Bible in much depth until you set Him free by regarding Him only as the one who's going to help you when you need it. Or you're only going to serve Him if He blesses you. You see, we need to set Him free regarding having to answer our prayer. And so this was the three Hebrew children. They said, we are not even careful to answer you. We don't need to defend ourselves. They were motivated by a prior commitment. They decided long before what they would do. They did not ask for time. When they were told, we're going to throw you into the fiery furnace, what are you going to do about that? Shadrach didn't need to say to Abednego, what do you think we should do? This is pretty serious. We're going to be thrown into the fiery furnace. They didn't need to have a committee meeting. They didn't need to have a time of counseling each other. They already knew. Jesus said, watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. He didn't say pray and watch. Why? Paul says make no provision for the flesh. You see, the real strength if you want not to fall into temptation, avoid the temptation. If you don't want to fall into sin, find out what is that temptation that is likely to lead you that way. I'll put it this way. Real strength is not by seeing how close you can get to temptation and not yielding, but you avoid the temptation. And so with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this was not a spur of the moment decision. They had a pure conscience. They said, we are not careful to answer you. You know, there's some things you don't pray about. You already know what to do. There are some things that you already know God has said no to. Well, their peers listened for the music. These three Hebrews listened for the music. They'd been waiting for this moment, and they refused to bow down. Everybody else fell down, and the three Hebrews are standing, unimpressed. The king had these three men bound, and they were thrown into the fiery furnace. Well, the king was so angry, he says, make it 7 times hotter. You know, sometimes the devil overreaches himself. In fact, he's always going to overreach himself. And the king went over the top, and he says, make it 7 times hotter. And the men who made it hotter, they got burnt. And the next thing you know, the three Hebrews are thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Those who threw them in are the ones that got burnt. Chuck Colson put it like this: God does not take us out of the fire. He gets into the fire with us. And the wonderful thing is, now they're in the fiery furnace and they're walking. Walking, you know what that means? The only thing that burnt was the rope. And I think at one moment, Shadrach tapped Meshach on the shoulder and said, look who's here. Look who's here. And the king looked in and said, did we not throw 3 men into the burning fiery furnace? Yes. I see not 3, but 4, and one is likened to the son of the gods. Question, was it Jesus? Yes, it was Jesus. He was right there. And this is the way it is on a stormy lake. The disciples were in their boat, and the storm was horrible. And they thought they were going to drown, and one looked and said, look who's here. Or they were fishing all night, and they looked at the shoreline, and they said, look who's here. Jesus has a way of showing up. These 3 Hebrew children now all could look at the 4 men and know that one of them was Jesus. When you are in a trial, what is it that people see? Do they see only you? For the 3 Hebrew children, it was more than the 3. Pleasant company. Look who's here. And when you are in the deepest trial, I can tell you, that's when Jesus will show up, and they will see Him. Here's a lovely poem. 'Twas not the truth you taught, to you so clear, to me so dim. But when you came to me, you brought a sense of Him. Yes, from your eyes He beckoned me. From your heart His love was shed. And I lost sight of you, but saw the Christ instead. My friend Arthur Blessed was carrying his cross in Amman, Jordan, and lay it down in front of a Holiday Inn hotel. And he said it was a hot August afternoon. I was thirsty, and he said the place was heavily guarded. But I went on in, nobody stopped me. I went downstairs to the bar and got a Coke. And when I finished the Coke, he said, I reached for my wallet to pay, and the bartender said, your drink is paid for. He said, well, what do you mean? That man down at the end of the counter just paid for your drink. Well, Arthur walked down, and it was an Arab sheikh. And he said, look, you paid for my drink? Thank you. Why did you do that? The Arab looked at him and said, I want what you've got. Arthur said, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I carry a cross around the world. The Arab sheikh said, look at all these people around. Nobody's smiling. You have a glow on your face. I want what you've got. Arthur witnessed to him. The Arab sheikh took him to the top floor. He happened to be a top oil man. The reason the place was heavily guarded, it was the OPEC meeting. And Arthur now was able to witness to everybody on the top floor, many Arab oil men. They received Jesus that day. All because one man saw in Arthur something different. They will see that about you. When you're in the fire, look who's here. Pleasant company, because the but if not overcomes impossible odds. I can tell you this, in this very year, the odds are you will be unfaithful in marriage. The odds are you will be unscrupulous in business. The odds are you will not break out of self-pity. The odds are you will not get over that grudge. But listen to me. There is a faith that overcomes impossible odds. And that is what we have here. And it's the but if not faith. It's the faith that will hold you when everybody turns against you, when the whole world is bowing down to the golden image or whatever its equivalent is, and you refuse to bow with them. God will deliver you. And not only that, your testimony will shake people as it did the king. They will want what you've got.